Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Linfield Coaches CatChat. Joe Stewart here with head Linfield football coach Joseph Smith, a day after being named Coach of the Year for the 12th time in your career in the Northwest Conference champions, 21 players on first team all-conference. I know you're focused on the playoffs, but have you taken a moment just to kind of look back and appreciate what this season has been so far?
Absolutely. You know, the it's been a fun ride this year. You know, the team's a special group and certainly well represented with, you know, individual awards, but you know, those are group awards and staff awards, all that sort of thing, and I'm really proud of them. It's been a neat season.
Early in this season, we kind of talked about this team's identity and how it evolved, and you pointed out that it's a really veteran group, but you were still kind of figuring out who they were. Now that you've got the full regular season under the belt, who is this team? What is this team's identity as they get ready for the postseason?
Well, earlier in the year, I was really concerned that we just weren't very excitable. You know, it was a pretty flatline team, and wasn't sure if they were enjoying it or if they were how competitive they were. But then I realized that, well, that is them excited. You know, that is them being fired up, and they're very even-keeled business team, and I really like it. It's fun. Nothing's too much for them, and certainly when I think they're down, they're not. They're ready to work and ready to grind, ready to compete, and the team loves to compete. That's something I think you'll see if you go back and watch the games this year. I think they really play really good against good competition, and they enjoy that and rise to the occasion, which I like.
That's exactly what you gotta want heading into the playoffs too, and just with so many fifth-year guys on the roster, I mean, they just seem completely unfazed anytime anybody thinks that they're going to bring a challenge to them. It's been really impressive. But let's get into your final regular season game, the 70-7 win at Lewis and Clark. One of the most dominant. I mean, you guys have had some dominant games this year. That was right there, up there, particularly with it being one of maybe the two greatest rushing days in the history of Linfield football. 445 rushing yards. That you had 659 overall, but 445 rushing yards was the second most in a game all time. A record that is being held by your '92 team, and 10.3 yards per carry is the most all time in a single game in Linfield history, breaking a record that has stood since '02. We knew this team could run the football from the beginning, but they have looked elite over the last few weeks. What makes this team so good at running the ball, particularly in a time when a lot of teams have focused more on the pass?
I think, you know, it is fun to bring up that '92 team. I just saw those guys, and I'm glad we didn't break their record personally. But
we were wondering about that.
But probably would have if the game would have gone any longer. But you know, I think what we're seeing is, you know, I told you guys pretty early in the year, just the way an offense goes is, if you're balanced and you have a system, is very much what the defense decides they're going to try to take away, and where they're going to stack their resources, if you will. And what we've found in the latter part of the season is we've always been able to run the football, but teams want to try to come up and get a numerical advantage or bring their safeties into the run game. Then the pass is pretty wide open, and you see those big passing numbers go off. So with the matchups that we have on the outside and the inside, you know, as teams start to keep their safeties back to help corners, help be a little more conservative, now they don't have the numbers up front, and now, you know, the O-line can go do what they do, and you're seeing those tremendous rushing yardage racked up. So I think that's been really fun to see. We've put a big emphasis on it. We've got a very veteran O-line. They're very proud of being able to run the football. They're very physical, and we've got really good running backs. So you put that all together, it's I guess playing out.
And we've talked about the depth at that running back position all year, and these last couple games when it's really all been clicking. I mean, you guys have been able to get 7-8 running backs into the game. Connor McNabb, though, has been the workhorse, and although workhorse is kind of a funny term, when he only had to carry it 12 times against Lewis and Clark, you didn't have to play him in the second half, and the guy goes for 182 yards and 2 touchdowns, his second Northwest Conference Offensive Player of the Week award. How has he really rounded into form as the running game has come together? I mean, he was banged up a little bit earlier in the year. Right now, he seems like the type of back that can take you deep into the postseason.
No, he is for sure, and earlier in the year he was dinged up a little bit, and we had to lean on Connor Morton, and now Connor's dinged up a little bit, and we're having to lean on McNabb. So it's been so wonderful to have both those guys for the last couple of years, because I think they're both elite backs. I don't see backs better than them on the West Coast, and then you have Martinez and Larson coming off, and Young coming off the bench. It's really a wonderful group. McAnally's done a great job, and having that depth allows all those guys to play harder. And so they know they'll get spelled. They don't have to save anything. They can run with tremendous exertion and power, knowing that they've got a viable backup to come in if they do get dinged, or if they need a blow. So allows them all to play greater, having that depth.
And then on defense, you guys gave up the early touchdown. It was 7-7, and they were able to get down the field with a couple big plays, a couple trick plays, ones that you kind of got to just put in the rearview mirror. How do you like this team's ability to do that? I mean, this was the first time they've given up a touchdown in the first quarter since week 1 against Huntington. What do you like about this team's ability to respond after giving up the score?
I didn't realize that, but that's a long time.
Yeah.
So, I think it probably upset them, which is good. It's good for them to be a little upset and to taste some adversity. So, I guess I just chuckled a little bit. Just good for them to be pissed off a little bit. So,
right.
You make some mistakes, a good team will make you pay, and they did. So, it was good to see them respond. I think, again, that's that veteran group up front, and our young linebackers maturing, and our secondary really gelling too.
And what separates, kind of like the same question with how you've been able to run the ball, but I mean, we've just seen utter domination for the last month. Only 17 points allowed in the last 4 weeks. What is it that is just putting this defense head and shoulders up against anybody they've gone against recently? And is that something that you can keep going in the playoffs? Certainly the teams are only going to get better and better. But.
Oh, absolutely. I think football has so much. Basketball maybe is the most matchup-oriented team, it seems like. But football has that too. And so, who you're playing against has a huge role in how well you do. And so we've just been much more physically superior to the teams we've played, in our conference up front. And our skill position players are faster than the kids we've been playing. So I think that's why you see such domination there. As we get into the playoffs, that talent level is going to get real close, real fast. So now it's going to come down to execution, and you're going to see the numbers go way down on offense, and you're going to see the numbers go up against our defense, just because the talent gap is going to close dramatically real fast.
And then you said a couple weeks ago, I think it was actually last week, that so much of that defense in the playoffs comes down to the tackling ability. How would you kind of evaluate your team's tackling ability right now?
Well, as soon as you see a Walter Payton out there, then here tackling seems to not be as good. So I think it's truly who you're seeing. But I think our guys have really, our coaches have really emphasized that, and they work at it really hard. And we have had tremendous open field tackling this year, and very good tackling within the box. Very little run after the yards after contact, and so that will bode well for us. I think our technique's pure, and I think our habits are clean. So that will pay off when we see some elite talent.
So Pomona-Pitzer coming to town this week for the first round of the NCAA Playoffs. It's certainly an interesting draw in the segment of the bracket that you guys are in. I know you don't want to look past anybody, but you've been around a while now. You've seen a lot of deep playoff runs. What are the keys in Division III football to making those deep postseason runs?
Probably the same, I would suppose, at every level to some extent, in the fact that you have to limit the explosive plays and make teams really earn it. So that does come down to tackling again on defense. Comes down to 0 missed assignments. You just can't have blown coverages. You can't have gimme plays. And then oftentimes the games come down to plays on the football in the air. And I've always felt like those 50-50 balls, I don't love that term, but those jump balls, those contested passes that could go either way, how those go dictate games. You see it at every level, and I really feel like that combined with just simple turnovers. A strip fumble, those turn the games. And so if you play good defense and you don't turn the ball over and you win a few jump balls, you can be successful.
Once again, Wildcats hosting the Pomona-Pitzer Sage Hens. It is actually the first ever postseason appearance for Pomona-Pitzer, and the first time that the Wildcats and the Sage Hens have ever met up, despite 100-year histories for both programs. So sure to be an interesting game this weekend here in McMinnville as the Cats are hosting the first round of the Division III playoffs. We'll, of course, have live coverage for you on Portland CW and the Linfield Sports Network. Kickoff scheduled for 12:05. Coach, thanks for the time, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you.